Again, I want to welcome everyone to Diggin Magazine's coverage of London Independent Film Festival. Welcome, congratulations to all of you for having your films in the festival. We're all very excited to have you here, and that all of your shorts are featured, so that's really wonderful. I am Cindy Maram. I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of Diggin Magazine. We are the official US press partner this year for LIFF. And yeah, so I'm thrilled to be able to speak with you all.
Our film is called Soundman. The logline is basically an ornithology professor comes to a group of people to discuss the sighting of a rare bird that no one's seen before. And it's like a TED Talk kind of event. And as she starts talking about this rare bird, she starts having technical difficulties. The sound goes wrong, the screen's going wrong. And as she puts up the first picture of this bird, she realizes she screwed up the pictures, and it's all pictures of her life, not the bird. So she starts to talk about her life in front of this audience and try to, fix this storyline. And people are getting, agitated and confused and know what's going on. And she starts to talk about her life and how everything has kind of gone downhill.
She unravels. She just unravels.
Oh, wow.
I'm the director and I help produce as well. Hi, nice to meet you. Hi. Yeah, it stars Emily Maya Mills, Ahmed Barucha, and Neil Flynn. Neil Flynn is probably the most named, the most famous, I guess, name of the three, but Ahmed and Emily are quite accomplished in their comedic talents as well.
I'm Amy. I'm a British filmmaker. My film short is called Screw the Pooch. It's a tragicomedy. A young woman returns home after her mother passes away, only to find that death is still hanging around, and the two of them become unlikely roommates because death has some unfinished business with her mother's dog.
Oh, wow. Very cool. So what is your role in the film? Or you're the director? Or
I wrote and directed it. My brother was the DOP, so it was a real family effort on a shoestring budget in between pandemic windows. A lot of fun to make.
Hi, I'm a German English director, actor, writer. I do a bit of everything, and I'm the director, writer, editor, and producer of Hope, a short film that was done during the pandemic. It's about 6 people that are fighting the feelings of hope in a time where they believe to be completely alone, and to keep themselves sane in isolation, they all start a video vlog, diary, where they speak to like a long lost friend or a long lost lover, and yeah, just using the diary to keep sane, basically. And it's basically a film that explores the feeling of hope. That's why the hope has a question mark on the title of it, because it can be terribly painful to experience hope, because it makes you keep going, but nothing happens. So it's really painful. At the same time, it can be the most beautiful thing, and it's a poetic exploration, 18 minutes short film of 6 people basically fighting with hope. And it's shot in black and white, and it's done in 6 different places over Germany and the UK, and it's been shot on phones because it was during lockdown.
wow.
So
Cool.
yeah, so I basically directed by watching back material and then calling them in the evening and giving notes, and they had to go and do it again or change things. And the edit was going as we went along, and so the whole story is improvised. So we didn't know whether it's going to work, but in the end it came, it just happened to be a really poetic, beautiful, moving film. And
it's about from a poetic point of view, is about love.
Intended, and what is the name of the film?
Absence Presence. Absence Presence. And sorry for the French, but that's the way I decided to entitle it. I didn't like it. I didn't like it in either in English or Italian, so I decided for the French, for a poetic reason. I think it's about love intended as absence, and love for me. In this film, the concept is love is longing for something that we miss deeply, and we love what we miss or what we do not possess yet. And when we attain something, usually passion subsides, and then it starts over again in a sort of perpetual cycle, wishing for something else that essentially is the same object of desire. There are main poetic concept at the foundation of this film, represented by these two words, absence, presence, but also grief is related to absence, memories are related to presence, and other words that are pronounced by the actress in the film, pronounced in a recording, and then I manipulated these sounds.
It's a dark comedy about social media, which
nice.
Yeah, it's basically the social doctor is because this guy here, the doctor, is a social media doctor. So rather than prescribing medicine for the body, he prescribes tips and suggestions to how to become a social media star to a group, to a group of wannabes influencers. So we have in this studio room, in this little doctor studio, there are 6 people, 6 wannabes influencers that queuing to meet this social doctor, and they talk to the social doctor one by one as you talk to your doctor in front of the other. So they kind of go up on a little stage, and they show to the social doctor a post, like a social media post, something you would post to your social media to get likes, and the people watching, they react to this performance, to this post, like in the social media. So with their faces, they react like laughing or liking or putting an angry face, a sad face, like the Facebook reaction, basically. And they go one by one, and it's a comedy, dialogue driven. Is a dark comedy about social media, about our relationship with social media, and about how there are plenty of people out there that trying to become a social media star, but in the end of the day, only 1 out of like 100,000, 10,000 people manages to get and become a influencer, fashion blogger with millions of followers.
I'm Liz Farhadi, and this is Tabitha Howard.
Oh, hello.
And our film is Losing Grace, which we made with Athena Mandis.
Oh, right. Okay.
Wrote it, and myself and Athena produced it. And I play the Louise, who's the mother in it, and Tabitha plays my daughter. And it's a story that is exploring the aftermath of domestic violence, or domestic abuse, I should say, because this is something that doesn't really get talked about. With the abuse is being talked about a lot, violence and that when it's happening, but what happens afterwards seems to go off the radar. And when we started researching this, we opened up a can of worms. We had no idea what we would discover. And we built a huge, we crowdfunded for this. And when we were doing that, we got a lot of people who had been through abuse and had been through the family court system and dealt with, the police, the social services, etc. And they all felt like they didn't have a voice. They all felt that the minute they'd managed to leave, that was it. They were completely and utterly let down. And everyone thought that they were alone. And it was really interesting as we discovered more and created this more and more, that this is something that has to be got out to everybody, not just people who've been through it. So it felt like a really, really important film to make. It felt like something that was so much more than just the story.
Athena. Oh, hi, Athena. You wrote it?
Yeah.
Oh,
so I
very cool.
directed it from an idea that Liz brought to the table, and we sort of developed it over almost 18 months, and it evolved into being a thriller that looked at sort of the aftermath of domestic abuse.
Oh, wow.
We wanted to put someone inside the world of the child in a way, and the kind of ambiguity that raises as well of that situation. And we shot it on the beautiful island of the Isle of Man, which is a rock in the middle of the Irish Sea between Ireland and England.
Very cool.
Yeah, it was beautiful. And so it was kind of, we wanted that sort of backdrop to be quite breathtaking as well.
Yeah, sure. I was the writer and the director on this film called Benchmarks. And it explores this idea about what you would say to your younger self. I remember it was around last summer, there was this mental health charity on Twitter, this statement, which is, your older self will thank you for sticking around. I thought, wow, what a kind of beautiful, kind of powerful statement that was. And it did kind of inspire the film itself, where this character called Mark, he's in his 30s, he's on a park bench and he has a conversation with his 9-year-old self. There's a little bit of banter between the two of them, but as it develops, you can see that middle Mark, the guy in his 30s, is, in a bit of a downward spiral, and he never became an astronaut, never became a footballer, never became a doctor. The little 9-year-old, you have a lot of expectations, at that age. It's a very optimistic time. But middle Mark hasn't really met those expectations, and clearly in his own head, he's in a kind of depressed sort of downward spiral. But there is a kind of positive conclusion where towards the end of the film, we go through this kind of quite a cool tunnel sort of effect before we actually reach older Mark, who's in his 70s. And he turns to middle Mark and says, thank you for sticking around. And it's kind of a positive conclusion to that story, really. But it's, the older Mark, who's played by Bhaskar Patel, who was in Raiders of the Lost Ark many years ago, and he was also in Thunderbirds, and is in a British show called Emmerdale. But he came on board, and like everyone, they came on board as a passion project, which was really great to tell this sort of story around mental health. And
hi, my name is Emily Elfadley. My short film is called From A to Q. It's a story about a girl who, I've said this over and over and everyone's already heard it, but I'm sorry about this. We're going to start again with this. It's about a girl who basically realizes that she has feelings for her best friend, who happens to be a girl. So the film is about her navigating her feelings and trying to figure out what it means. And when I was younger and I was trying to figure out what it meant to have a crush on this girl at school, I didn't have the internet to turn to, whereas my character uses Google to search, and it shows that a lot of people have been through that same thing. And and she tries to find answers, and she's trying to work out if she should tell her friend, etc. But it has a lot of different, I built it around different dream sequences. So we've got a dance sequence, we've got a nightmare sequence where she ends up talking to herself, but like her alter ego in a sense. And then we have the confrontation at the end, which is very emotional in a sense. And I wouldn't call it a coming out story. I use the term self-discovery instead of coming out, because there's no coming out in the film. You're left kind of, it's like open-ended in a sense. And I tried to, with this film, I kind of branched out as far as I could. And for example, it features music by Taylor Swift, which is like a huge thing, especially in the LGBT community, to have an LGBT film that features her music, because there's a lot of going on with Taylor in that asked in that sense in a way. So that was really fun to bring that in.
So I'm an actress, and I'm a Canadian actress based in Italy, and this is my first time writing and directing, and so I had a story.
And the name of the film?
The film is called A Fairy Tale. It's called A Fairy Tale because it's about a little girl who is woken up in the middle of the night, and she's set a task, and she finds that task so terrifying that she sort of transforms it into a fairy tale. So she feels she's on a fairy tale, she's on an adventure, and she must fulfill this task. And as you get into the film, you start to realize that the task is basically just to open her front door. But why is she asked to open her front door? She's asked to open her front door because earlier that night, her father had beaten her mother and her sisters. Out. And he had thrown them all out except for her because she's little and he didn't touch her. And so she is the only one left inside. And the sisters throw some mud at her window and tell her, go and open the door, let us back in, but don't wake Dad. And so she's set this whole sort of, it's all filmed in the dark.
Oh, wow.
And she has to go down the hallway in the dark and not wake up her dad, who she calls the dragon. So she's trying not to wake the dragon up, and she's trying to get to the front door. And you start to, what I hoped to convey was the effects of a child who is in a house where there's domestic violence, because basically the film feels a bit like a horror film. And I think that's not very distant then for what it feels like for children. And, you know, Athena and Liz, I'm sure our films tie very nicely together. So whereas yours is about the aftermath of domestic violence, mine would be about sort of specifically the effects of children who, you know, quote unquote, just watch. There's so much violence that what I'm trying to say is we underestimate perhaps the effects of domestic violence.
Once again, congratulations on all of your short films being in London Independent Film Festival.